Gundam Epyon.
Hey again everybody, Robert184, 2Rs2Bs, gundam.tk. You've seen the mobile suit and you've seen the mobile armor. I'm going to give you a list of good and bad things here in the verdict so that you can decide whether this kit is a possible right fit for you. To kick things off with the negatives is the angry dragon heads look on. The first one is going to be weight issues. Whenever you've got something from Seed or Destiny, anything with a backpack, you're going to have issues. This one is really no exception, but it's offset by the fact of two things. One, you can prop it up using the fact that the wings actually go back and touch the ground and can actually keep it propped up. That's fantastic. The other thing that you can do is you just have to be patient, and if you just get the legs and the center balance just right, you are able to have it with the wings up, standing up, no action base, and it's going to be working. However, not so much luck with parts falling off. Now, this is a transforming Gundam, which means you're going to be handling it more than you would a normal one outside of regular posing, and I've had, as you've seen in the earlier parts, I've had the arm itself fall off, the forearm guard, the wrist, the V-fins, the ankle fins. That's what I'm talking about right there. Be careful that you don't lose these, and especially that little tiny V-fin. I mean, this one you expect it to fall off all the time. This one, not so much. Now, something that applies to this kit as well as pretty much any other Gundam kit, when you're assembling it, if you're putting parts on and they just don't seem to want to go and you can't quite figure it out and there's a little bit of pressure, take a look at what you're doing, because I had a few issues with the waist section and everything, and because of that now I have discolored. You get that little white part because there's too much pressure. I have that on the fins on the legs as well as on the waist transforming mechanism, so I'm hoping that that's not going to lead to problems down the line, so just be careful when you're assembling it. Now I'm getting into a few small nitpicks. You can't see much of the cockpit Milliardo Peacecraft even if you open it up, unless you shined a flashlight in there. It's in there a little bit too deep. Some of the poses on the box, now you got to be careful of this, Bandai usually does a pretty good job. They are not going to work without something keeping them in place. You may have seen the heat rod just bent up in an incredibly impressive pose. You can get it there, but it's going to fall over 99 times out of 100. So either you're gluing that or keeping it in place or wire or whatever. Bandai has a lot of people, so they can put these kits together. You're probably only going to have one, so putting it into one pose forever may not be something that you want to do all the time. In terms of the beam sword, I was a little disappointed that, similar to Death Scythe, Hell's weapon, it only faces one way. So they could have put the actual grip on the sword in two different places, the hole, so that when you plug it into the manipulator, you could either have the sword facing forward or off to the side. That would have been nice. Some of the poses on the box, again, are a little bit fake, I found, in that place. 3 sets of manipulators, what do people think about that? You can have one movable set with a 3-finger trigger finger split. I don't mind in this case, they all seem to work, but that's something that's up to the individual. But another thing where these dragon heads on the box seem to bend all over the place. They don't seem to do that for me, so either I'm not pulling them quite out enough, but I've got the pop and everything seems to be going. They don't move all that much, but you can get them in the poses that you want. Finally, my 2 biggest complaints are that when you look at the bottom of this Gundam, from the top and the side, yes, I think he looks good, but from the bottom, well, let's call it like it is. You just see a whole Gundam bent over with his arms awkwardly placed forward and his legs looking like he's had the most painful yoga class ever. Now, this isn't going to be on display too often, but let's call a spade a spade. This is a pretty lame transformation when you're looking at it from this angle. But that I can forgive, but what I'm really, really unhappy about, my biggest disappointment, is you may have seen this action base and my frustration. This thing fell off all the time. If you're going to give a new custom connecting piece, you expect it to work, and something when you've actually got it clicked into place and it doesn't work at all, it falls off 10 times when you're trying to get it into an asymmetrical pose, and a few times even when it is symmetrical. That's my biggest disappointment about this kit, and something that makes me not want to put it in some of those crazy poses that this thing was obviously made to go in. And final knock against this, no effect parts. For the good parts, you're going to see an unarmed yet still formidable looking Epyon, and as I transform them, I can't help but think of G-Generations, the sounds that your MSs make when you transform them before deploying them. But I digress. So the good things, let's talk about the build. This is strictly personal for me. There's a lot of variety in this because I've been building the same Gundams over and over and over again. Building some bad guys like this, especially unique ones and transforming ones, was a lot of fun. But in terms of just pure build, the legs, the wings, the waist, and the chest are all noteworthy. They all had something special about them, and the head I just think is a fantastic build. Getting into the looks, we've got the colors here, which are absolutely incredibly bright. You may have seen the old one beside it. it looks like it's 15 years old, and the plastic shows. The red here pops, the white looks great even though it's only in such few places. The yellow again is incredible. The face mask, I think they could have it's just perfect. Everything about the colors is great, which leads into the looks. What do you think of the redesign? For me, I think it works perfectly. I think the proportions are outstanding. I mentioned a long time ago when this thing got announced that I thought it looked mousy. I don't think it looks at all like that. It's sleek enough, and yet it's still wider and more powerful looking than the Wing Gundam when they're side by side. So as the Epyon, as the Melee King really should be. And the most important thing for the looks is just the massive wings. When you see the high grade beside this, and its wings are about yay big in comparison, this one comes across as looking much better. In terms of the gimmicks, the opening wings is great. Again, that's something the high grade couldn't even dream of, but just by getting those 3 different sections when you pop them open, it's easy to do it. You get a satisfying click. Everything about that gimmick works for me. Now, moving on to the weapons, the heat rod really, really works well 80-90% of the time. It's going to do what it wants. It stays in place most of the time. If you try to do anything silly with it, well, it's not going to stay there. So you're either cheating and getting it box art on the sides, who knows how they do it, but in this case you're going to be satisfied most of the time. But it's the beam sword that is immense, oversized, it looks powerful, and even the details like the fact that they're going to give you a really good wire, maybe give that a little bit of trim, but everything about the weapon so far is an absolute win. From the fact that you can attach them together, it can carry its weapons in both modes, like you can put the beam sword onto here and you can keep it just everything in place, little things like that that explain, well, of course it's a cartoon, but how do they get their weapons into battle? This one makes it look easy. Now, as a transforming Gundam, you have to talk about the MA mode, and I'm just going to say that it looks fantastic from the top and the sides, and that's all I can say. But it's something that Zeta version 2.0, when I was doing this, it's the complete opposite because it is simply put, it's fun. I mean, it is what it is. It's a cartoon. It's a bent-over dragon heads in its foot kind of Gundam. If you can accept that, I think that it's an MA mode that you'll actually use. Most of my Gundams, I transform them for the reviews, and they'll probably never get done again. But this one is one that it's just fun enough, and I think it looks interesting and unique, especially if there was a Wing Zero Master Grade anime version, that they would look fantastic together. So at the end of the day, there's lots of good things and bad things about the build, the colors, etc. But the most important thing for me is, does this nail the power of the manga, I suppose? Of course, I think about the anime, Epyon, everybody remembers it from the anime. It's got its new form here. This is something that you have to decide on your own. If you like the non-animated EW kits, I'm talking about the predecessors before the OVA, that's completely up to you. I've warmed up to them. I'm seeing them in the manga and some of the promo art. They're just looking better and better. But this one, for me, I think they nailed they just got it perfect because it's similar enough to the old anime one, and it's new enough that it has that 2011 kind of aesthetic, and I think that they couldn't have got the balance any better. And as these two go around, these two were made to be posed together, and I can't wait to put them both with their beam sabers and swords in hand. Well, maybe some twin buster rifles, but you get the idea. The posing possibilities are endless. The colors, everything about them, they are made to go together. Now, with another special guest, it's time to talk about the future of this line. We already know that the EW, Sandrock, and Heavy Arms are coming out, one in 2011, one probably shortly thereafter. And I have to assume, I don't know how much of this is hope, that the OVA versions, the movie kits, that they're on their way. Because Sandrock and Heavy Arms, they're just recolors. I don't think we are going to get any kind of anime version of the Epyon. Of course, if this sells gangbusters, who knows if you do, but I don't see anything on the plates or anything like that to indicate that we're going to get the old style stuff. Future variations? Well, that's something that I guess we'll have to see from reading more of the manga. But the one thing that I really thought about the most is, what about the Tall Geese 1, 2, and 3? You've got the weapons already, and it's just Gundam Wing is Gundam Wing. When you getting all 5 suits in their EW forms, I'm talking their previous forms, is going to be great. Getting them all in their movie forms, or the ones that we actually saw animated, that's what I'm waiting for, of course. The Epyon is looking good enough that it should be in the OVA. Wish it had been. If we can get some Tall Geeses to add to that, I don't think there would be a Gundam Wing fan in the world that would be disappointed. But in the end, that's just my opinion. What did you think of this kit? Has it done enough for you to want to spend the money on it? Is it nostalgia? Is it the build? What about this appeals to you? There's so many good things for me. Of course, there's some small things, but they're all easily overcomable. And when you get it in one good pose with the huge weapons in hand, I think it's all going to be worth it. Anyway, everybody, stay tuned. Robert184, gundam.tk. Always good to have you here. Stay tuned for lots more reviews of kits new and old and all sorts of other good stuff. Please let me know what you think with a comment down below or on my front page. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you like the vids, please hit like and show me that you do. Thanks again, everybody. See you next time. Sorry, but connect that to yourself with a giant wire, then we can talk. Why on earth did they name this series Gundam Wing?